I'm Darren Millard, and this is InGoal Radio, the podcast, presented by Source for Sports Surrey, The Hockey Shop, thehockeyshop.com. This week's gear segment, dealing with the jock. And I know everybody starts to giggle automatically, but this is serious business. And Kevin Woodley is going to catch up with Cam and discuss protecting yourself in the best way possible. And from that very sensitive area, our feature interview this week deals with the mind. It's Bell Let's Talk Week, and we are going to catch up with Justin Goldman from the Goalie Guild and his Lift the Mask campaign and his endeavors and efforts to help goaltenders of all ages when it comes to mental health. As we bring in Kevin Woodley, and David Hutchison is on assignment this week, and it just feels a little lonely, is because Dad's really developed into, at the start of this project, he decided that he was going to be doing a lot of the editing and the production side of it, and he dipped his toe into the broadcasting world, and lately he's been doing the interviews, Woody. And now I feel like we're lonely.
He's running our show for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, and let's be honest, like deciding to do all of the production, the reality is the two of us can barely plug in our machines and connect on Skype, Darren. So without him, none of the production would have a chance of getting
by
done.
default, right?
Exactly. So yeah, it is going to feel a little lonely. He had that great interview with David Leggio last week, but he's busy. He's on assignment, and that means no dad. So we can just run amok for the next
He did tell
hour.
me a great story, though, that his son, Matty, was playing in an event last weekend, and it was the NHL All-Star Weekend, and all of Matty's teammates, these young teenagers, are gathered around, and they're watching the women's 3-on-3 spectacular in St. Louis, and just mesmerized by the skill, the intensity, and the performance of the women. And a big shout-out to Team Canada goaltender Anne-Renee Debienne, who was spectacular and easily the best player on the ice.
And as an added bonus, should be on the podcast next week. We were
Really?
trying to set it up for this week. We were going to have it this week, but then it made a lot more sense, frankly, to have Justin on. I'm not sure why we didn't pre-plan this. This is going to seem like it was smart, but it was just more, oh man, it's Bell Let's Talk Day. Let's get Justin on to talk about Lift the Mask. But yeah, they've got the rivalry series, obviously the 3-on-3 showcase that they had at the NHL All-Star Game, but right back to the rivalry series. And that means that Canada and the USA women's teams are going to be playing each other in Victoria next week, I believe on the Monday, February 3rd, and then right back at it at Rogers Arena here in Vancouver on the Wednesday, February 5th. And that means they're in my backyard, and that means an opportunity to have Anne-Renee Debienne on the podcast, fresh off the heels of, like what you said, just a spectacular performance. And it doesn't matter whether you're boy, girl, young, old. Maddie's teammates watching around the rink while they're at a tournament. Guys watching it. I was at a sort of alumni and old timer beer league type tournament with the Canucks Autism Network. Same kind of thing. Everybody marveling at the skill and talent. So I'll have a chance to talk to her, and I'm looking forward to it.
I thought it was great because they added some real intensity into a fun, loose environment of NHL All-Star Weekend and the skills competition night. And they really brought it. It's such an incredible stage for women's hockey, and the women certainly delivered and brought just a different element and a different feel. And the performance was right up there. Like you watch players, and we watch goaltenders some more specifically, and you go, okay, they're having a good night. But it was early on. You could tell Anne-Renee was just locked in and was going for one of those special performances.
And the question I had was, I didn't know how much have they played 3-on-3 against each other. We know the epic battles between Canada and the USA, obviously on the international stage, but it's always 5-on-5. Like we haven't, at least obviously in the women's leagues, the CWHL, the NWHL, there may be an overtime format there where they would have been comfortable with it. But I just personally myself hadn't seen the 3-on-3 and I'm wondering how much of an adjustment. So that can be one of the questions that we ask, because as much as players have to sort of figure out the systems and the strategies, we know as goaltenders, 3-on-3 is a different beast.
Well, and she was great at when making a save, if any way possible, moving the puck too. So make sure you to congratulate her on that, because she was awesome at recognizing opportunities to play the puck and avoid a face-off or a whistle or a stoppage in her own zone. So I'm looking forward to that. I didn't realize that Anne-Renee Debian was going to be part of the podcast next week on InGoal Radio, the podcast presented by Sorcerer Sports Surrey, the Hockey Shop, thehockeyshop.com. Cam coming up from the Hockey Shop, discussing cup protection and jocks in just a little bit. But our feature interview this week dealing with mental health, and Justin Goldman is somebody that you're a little bit more familiar with than I am. I know him, I know of him, I know his work, but the InGoal and the Goalie Guild kind of came on the scene roughly the same area, same time period.
Yeah, very similar, I think, around, I think Justin said 2008. I think Hutch and I got together with InGoal Magazine 2010. The Olympics, obviously, here in Vancouver, was the start of our relationship. But Hutch had started InGoalMag.com a little bit before that. I'd obviously worked for Goalie News and Ian Clark's publications, as far back as 2002. And yeah, there's a lot of synergy there. We've gotten to know each other a little bit over the years. I had a chance to meet him. Obviously, he was a big part of the network goaltending symposiums. In Madison, Wisconsin first, and then in Nashville. And that was the first chance we actually got to meet in person. So kind of cool to have him on the podcast, and I think very fitting. We've had a lot of guests over the years talking mental health, whether it's Clint, Malarchuk, Robin Lehner, or Corey Hirsch. But what Justin's done and what he started, as he explains on Bell Let's Talk Day, with his Lift the Mask program is a resource that can help goaltenders at every level of every age. And it was really fascinating to me to sort of get into that conversation with him about where those lines between mental performance and mental health are drawn, if they're drawn at all, and how the work he's done with Lift the Mask and the resources they provide fit into that.
His interest and his production when it comes to goaltending has certainly evolved from the nuts and bolts of it, playing the game and scouting, into the mental health aspect. Here is Justin Goldman from the Goalie Guild. Lift the Mask, our feature interview presented by Sorcerer Sports Surrey, the Hockey Shop, thehockeyshop.com, on InGoal Radio, the podcast. This is going to be a wide-ranging conversation, so let's start at the beginning. And Justin, if you could just give us your background, Goalie Guild, and then we'll get into Lift the Mask.
Yeah, I started the Goalie Guild back in 2009. It was just, at the time, it was just kind of a place for me to dump, a whole bunch of observations and thoughts on goaltenders that I was seeing when I was doing some broadcasting for the Colorado Avalanche in Denver. And I was really fortunate, just to do some radio during the day and do some post-game analysis. And obviously you get the press pass with the PHWA or the PWHA, and then you get the opportunity to sit there and scout goalies during NHL games. And it was such a treat and a awesome opportunity for me to even get the chance to do that. And so, the Goalie Guild just kind of sprung out of this opportunity to, write some pretty rudimentary reports back then about goalies that I was watching come through and play the Avalanche. And it just kind of grew from there. I think back then, on social media, there was really only a few other people that was kind of talking about goalies at the time. And InGoal Magazine was definitely one of the first, organizations and first couple of people to do that. So back then it was kind of easy to have your voice be heard in the goalie community, just because no one was really doing it at the time. And things kind of grew from there. And that's kind of how I got the opportunity with NHL.com a few years after that. And then that led to the opportunity with the USA Hockey National Team Development Program, where I actually got to do some scouting in the Twin Cities region, which was an awesome opportunity to kind of get to do that for 1 year. And then again, led to the opportunity to write some books with the former Stars goalie coach, Mike Valley. And that led to more opportunities to do more research. And that's when I started traveling overseas to Finland and Sweden to kind of study goalie development in Scandinavia and the culture over there. And then, I just continued on. And I think I came back from that trip in Finland where we did a camp with Network Goaltending in Varimaki, and realized that I had an opportunity to, move back to Colorado. I'd spent the 2 years in Minnesota, so I came back to Colorado started working for the family business full time, and that gave me the opportunity to transform the Goalie Guild into a nonprofit 501c3 foundation. So I was really fortunate again to have the opportunity to work for the family business full time and push the Goalie Guild into this new realm of, giving back and offering scholarships, and just trying to, kind of eliminate some of the financial barriers involved in goaltending, just because we know gear is expensive, training is expensive. It's already an expensive sport when you're playing club or travel or AAA hockey. So this was kind of my way of giving back to the game by doing the annual scholarships and turning it into a foundation. And that's kind of where things are at now. It's been almost 5 years of this nonprofit journey, and it's been really rewarding and also really exciting to just continue to not only learn about goaltending, but also, again, just mentor and give back to the game and the goalie community.
How would you break down the pie of the Goalie Guild now between analysis, evaluation, news, and the not-for-profit?
Yeah, I mean, now it's 100% nonprofit. Like, obviously, I love to watch games when I have the opportunity and break down goaltending technique. But for now, I left the family business last year and joined another nonprofit foundation here in Denver called MindSpark Learning. And MindSpark Learning is an education nonprofit, but they kind of brought me in as a director to build a new sports education program. And so that's my full-time job now. And the Goalie Guild is still kind of like that project on the side that that's near and dear to my heart. And now it's just been really exciting to kind of take what I've learned in the nonprofit world and goaltending and apply that on a larger scale across all sports, and kind of blending new age education and kind of how the education world is shifting to this new realm where it's a lot about SEL, which is, social emotional learning and empathy-based learning, and just kind of tying in what's happening in the education world here in the U.S. into athletic development and kind of finding ways to use athletics to promote, again, that social emotional learning and that character development that's so important in young kids. So it's kind of a new program here at MindSpark Learning, but it's just been super rewarding, again, to kind of 100% go into this concept of education and nonprofit and kind of sports development as a whole.
So Goalie Guild has sort of moved past or evolved past the mainstream day-to-day evaluations or techniques and gear into Lift the Mask?
Yeah, I think Lift the Mask just over the past 2 years that this program's been around has definitely taken over a lot of the day-to-day operations, as you will. You do the research and you kind of look at what's out there for goalies in terms of getting, the specific type of help that they need and getting connected to the right people. So we know that goalie coaches do an amazing job of mentoring these young kids, but I think there's a lot of situations where goalie coaches aren't necessarily sure like exactly what to say. They know that they want to help. They know that this goalie might be going through a certain type of issue, but they don't want to push the wrong button. So instead, sometimes they don't say anything at all. They don't approach that goalie at all. And so Lift the Mask was kind of born out of this idea that the goalie community needs something that's goalie specific, that's going to help coaches and the goalies find the right type of support as easily and as efficiently as possible. And so that's kind of how the program developed. It was just an idea that I had literally exactly 2 years ago on Bell Let's Talk Day in 2018. I was just kind of sketching something on my free time, thinking about a lot of the stories that come out during the day, and how we've seen this global movement towards improving and just kind of normalizing the conversations about mental health in sports and in all areas of life. And I knew there weren't really a lot of goalie specific resources that were really targeted on mental health and helping goalies, quote unquote, lift the mask and get the right type of support, whether that's through a mental skills coach or a sports psychologist or consultant or something like that. And so realizing that there wasn't really a lot in the United States that was athlete specific for mental health initiatives or obviously hockey specific, that's kind of where the idea came out of. And it was something that was near and dear to my heart and something that I knew the goalie community really appreciated. And again, considering I was running a nonprofit foundation, it made perfect sense. And it was something, again, that I just loved the idea of kind of building and growing and creating that resource, creating that platform where goalies can come and share, things that they might be going through, giving them a place to vent anonymously. So they know that they may not be in fear of, being cast aside by their coach or losing playing time. And so just that like anonymous platform, and that safe space for goalies to really reach out, or even coaches and parents as well, that are involved in the goaltending position, because it is such a different, unique role, as you guys very well know. And so there's got to be goalie specific resources and connectors out there in order to give everyone a chance to, get better and get the help that they really need.
I want to get into some of those resources and specific resources in just a little bit, but just to loop back, when you talked about goalie coaches and students and having that conversation and not knowing what to say or how to go about it, can you give me an example of maybe where that would fall through the cracks?
Yeah, I mean, I think first and foremost, like, we all experience trauma and anxiety and depression in different ways. And every goalie is going through something, whether they're actually playing the game or it's something off the ice. And that is like what makes goaltending so difficult, is you're alone with your thoughts in the crease. No one's there to give you positive reinforcement all the time. It's just you alone in your own thoughts in the crease. And so as a coach, if you don't live with it, you can't truly understand it, because everyone is experiencing, like I said, anxiety or depression or OCD or any of those common disorders that we see with goaltending. They're all experiencing it differently. So what do you often hear as a coach when a goalie, may actually be trying to open up? They say, a goalie is going to say something like, well, you have no idea what I'm really going through. Like, that's just a common phrase that we hear. Maybe it's from your kids or it's from teammates or whatever the case may be. And like, that's a legitimate comment to make. Of course, we don't truly understand what you're going through. But the question, I think, what comes out of it as a goalie coach or as someone who just wants to mentor young athletes and, help them become the best version of themselves is, well, as a coach, how can I learn how to better understand what this goalie may be going through? And that is where this concept of social emotional learning and empathy-based learning becomes so important for coaches to develop those skills. And these are skills that you can develop. And there's a lot of great resources out there that we try and promote through the Goalie Guild and through conversations that I have and through MindSpark Learning that's focused on these skills, social emotional learning and empathy-based learning. And there's a lot of examples of these things. I think you guys probably experience it every day. We're trying to understand what a goalie is going through, and we're trying to communicate, and we're trying to uncover why certain characteristics kind of pop up during a game, or why certain disorders might pop up during a game. And being able to understand another individual and really put yourself in their shoes and have those conversations where you're opening up and you're sharing things that may be a little bit uncomfortable, because you're talking about feelings and you're talking about emotions. Like, that is a skill that coaches need to develop. And that's what's really going to not only help you kind of vibe with your students and with your athletes, but it's also going to help you kind of gain a better perspective of what goalies are going through at this day and age. Because again, it goes back to that one idea that if you don't truly live with it, you can't really understand what that individual is going through, but you can always try and understand them better by having good conversation and having wholesome conversation that's safe, where there is no judgment being cast on that individual. It's just truly trying to listen and understand their perspectives, putting the judgment aside and trying to understand their feelings so that you can better understand what buttons you need to push or how you need to approach certain situations that may arise in the future.
Justin, you talked about, you kind of mentioned disorders and mental health, and obviously Bell Let's Talk Day being a catalyst for Lift the Mask a couple of years ago. And obviously we're talking to you today on Bell Let's Talk Day. So the synergy there is perfect. Where's that line between, And maybe there isn't a line. Maybe it's all the same between, dealing with some of the disorders you mentioned, depression, anxiety, bipolar, any of those sort of, what we think of as mental health disorders, and mental training, sort of a trend that we've seen in goaltending. We've spent time with guys like John Stevenson, who've worked with Holtby and Hart, and Pete Fry doing articles on InGoal and on the new InGoal site. Like, where does that line, where does Lift the Mask fit into those lines? Are those lines just completely blurred and it all falls under the same category? Is there some separation between sort of, quote unquote mental training and getting help on the mental health side of things?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think it's really interesting to talk about because for me, I think they're blurred. And what we try and do is we want to remove the stigmas surrounding mental health by approaching it with a younger goalie as mental performance. And so I think the work that John Stevenson and Pete Fry and the articles that you guys are posting about mental performance, like actual mental skills, whether it's focus or confidence or visualization, like those things are super, super important because that's going to start those conversations about the actual emotions and the feelings that goalies may be having. So I think the lines are blurred, and that is a good thing. I see that as a positive because anytime you can kind of eliminate or kind of shed the stigma surrounding mental health, which, when a young goalie might think of mental health, they might automatically think, oh, well, that means there's something wrong with me. No, it's not about that. It's like, look, even the most elite NHL goalies are battling with some of these issues, whether it's confidence or not looking too far ahead or not looking back at the past, whether they gave up a bad goal or had a bad streak. But mental performance and working on those mental skills is also going to benefit your mental health because you're becoming more aware of who you are as an individual and how you respond or how you react or what kind of personality traits you have when these things are happening. And they're happening all the time. So it's one thing to just kind of be, oblivious to the fact that you're dealing with certain pressures and you're dealing with all of the different, the wide spectrum of mental health and mental skills. But if you go in and you have that target of, I'm going to work with a mental skills coach because I want to get better at sustaining confidence over the course of the season. At the same time, you're also improving your mental health because the awareness is there. You're having conversations. You're taking it upon yourself to kind of look at yourself from the inside out as opposed to the outside in. And that's just going to make you more aware, and that's going to improve the relationship that you have with your coach, which is going to improve the better performance, going to improve the relationship that you have with yourself as an individual. And again, it kind of all radiates out. And I think that's why the lines are blurred. And that's why I love seeing this kind of influx, like you said, Kevin, this influx of more mental skills, more mental training. It's kind of moved past the idea of just yes, we understand that your eyes are probably your most important physical skill as a goalie. And now it's well, the eyes are connected to the brain, and the brain is really the most important tool that we have as a goalie. So what can we do to make our brain perform 1% better? And so those mental skills and the mental coaches and all of that stuff, I think, leads into it, which one, helps eliminate the stigma around mental health, and two, gives goalies an opportunity to work on some of these skills without fear of being, again, judged or cast aside or feeling like they've got to work their way through their career with a shadow hanging over them, like they've got something wrong with them. So I think that's a great question, a really cool discussion to have, because I think those lines are totally blurred, and that's a good thing.
Do you think it's a coincidence? Goalies have led the way on this, Justin. Yeah, you're leading the way with Lift the Mask in terms of a support mechanism and that conversation getting out to a broader audience and access to that conversation below the pro levels. But in the pro ranks, goalies have led a lot of these articles that we're seeing, whether it's Robin Lehner on The Athletic opening up, right back to 2014. I remember Ben Scrivens, raising awareness with some specialized masks dedicated to mental health when he was with the Oilers. Corey Hirsch has been a guest on our podcast. Clint Malarchuk, obviously, and everything he's gone through. We've had him on. Guys like Jonathan Iilahti writing stories about his experiences. You guys working with people like Ben Meisner to raise awareness. Like, goalies seem to be central to this conversation. Is there something about the position that you think not creates or lends itself to maybe these attributes? Are people with the attributes drawn to the position or vice versa? Or does the position itself just make us more willing to talk about it openly? And this, statistics probably say this exists elsewhere in the locker room. It's just the guys wearing the masks that are willing to borrow the phrase from your foundation, lift the mask.
Yeah, man. Again, it's such a good question, because I think it's a little bit of both. I think goalies are a product of their environment, but also goalies have the ability to control a lot of the thoughts that go through their mind, because they are completely isolated in the crease. So again, I think it's a little bit of both. And I think, at least for me personally, like, once I just started to see these stories pop up, like, you listed them all almost in like perfect chronological order, by the way, which was super impressive. Like, that's awesome, because you like pretty much nailed all of the really major, super impactful, super influential stories that have come out from goalies over the past 6, 7 years now. I think it's just a matter of time before goalies realize that if they don't talk about their emotions and their feelings and what they go through on a daily basis when they're performing at such a high level, and they're training at such a high level, and they're embracing this grind that you guys know about really, really well, like, it's just going to burn you out, and it's just going to weigh you down. And eventually you have to lift that mask. You have to find a way to vent some of the frustrations or some of the fears or some of the anger or some of these negative kind of emotions that you're dealing with, because if you don't, man, it can really affect your life long term. And I think the perfect example of that is Tim Thomas, when he came out at the USA Hockey Hall of Fame induction ceremony. Like, that was really, really impactful for me, because, growing up watching Tim Thomas and seeing how much he battled and what he went through to even make it to the NHL, and just like how big of an impact he had on the Boston Bruins organization and everything that came along with all the awards. Like, you put this guy on a pedestal, and you consider him an icon and an idol. And then you see the human element. You see what it does to him and what it's done to him since he retired. And then it all starts to kind of manifest itself in very interesting ways. And you can't help but feel that emotion. You could cut it with a knife in the room, I'm sure. And just watching the interviews and his reaction to everything, like, the emotion that he showed, I think, was so powerful, because it proved and it showed to everyone, whether you're a goalie or a defenseman, or you're doing something totally different with your life outside of hockey, like, you need to talk to someone. You need to talk to someone, because if you don't and you bottle it in, it's only going to make things worse. And it's only a matter of time before people can only handle so much and something bad happens. And so, that's kind of been my experience too over the past few years, is like, we're all dealing with stuff. To open up a little bit personally, like, I met my wife in Finland totally randomly 4.5 years ago. We didn't see each other for 6 months straight, dealing with the visa process. And I didn't talk to anyone about it. And that had such a negative impact on me. It affected my work. It affected my play in the beer leagues. It affected the way I managed relationships and friendships with family and goalie coaches and friends that I work with and talk to every day. And when I finally opened up to someone about what I was going through and how much it was really affecting me, just the weight that comes off your shoulders, and you feel so empowered to take that experience and go share it with someone else that might be struggling. And that's kind of why, some of the tweets that I put out today on Bell Let's Talk Day, it's like, it's not just about what lifting the mask can do for you as an individual who needs help. It's also like what that message and what that act does for other people. Because every time you talk to someone, or you see someone else talking, or you share a story, like some of the awesome stories that you guys have shared on this podcast over the past year, it's like, it really does make a difference. in how other people start to approach their own lives. And by seeing all these stories about these goalies that have gone through so much trauma and so many difficult moments in their lives, it does make a huge impact, because it becomes that much easier for you to go and talk to someone else about whatever it is you're dealing with. And that's why I think it's exponential in the goalie world, that goalies, and now you're seeing it, Kevin, like you're seeing the goalies kind of be at the forefront of mental health in hockey. One, because the demands on the position are so extreme. Two, because we're kind of alone with our thoughts, and I think we need it more. And I know that's a very biased comment to make, and everyone's different, but I feel like goalies especially just need that soundboard, need that mentor, or that connection, or that somewhere they can go, or that someone they can talk to. And three, because it's so extreme, and because we're willing to open up, it's making it easier for more athletes and more young goalies and pretty much anyone to go out and talk to someone. So a bit of a long-winded answer, but again, it's great discussion, and it kind of all comes back full circle to like, this is what the situation is. And by like just kind of living life with a little bit of more empathy, you can really have drastic influence on not just one individual, but a whole community and a whole sport.
I'll put this to both of you, and Kevin, you can answer first, and Justin, play off it. Do you think goaltending and the position allows and clears an avenue for goaltenders to be more public, to seek a conversation, to lift the mask, to borrow your term, Justin, more so because goaltending and the position already lends itself to being odd, different, left field?
It's funny. In some ways I can see it. And I thought Justin expressed a lot of those thoughts just now really well in terms of why goaltenders are at the forefront of this and why they need the help. But on the other side of it, like, because it's been so easy for so long, maybe it does make it easier because the stereotype has been, that the goalies are just different and, odd, and things that phrases we wouldn't throw out anymore, but that's been the perception for so long. And yet at the same time, like any perceived mental weakness in a position that is so mental and so tied to mental strength, like I think it's incredibly brave.
Would it be harder, Kevin, for a first line centerman to do this and go public and have a conversation with his coach or his assistant coach or his manager than a goaltender?
Well, I would think for a goaltender, like admitting mental weakness as publicly as some of these guys have done, or something that, I shouldn't say admitting mental weakness, but something that others may perceive as mental weakness, is actually riskier. Like, to me, that's braver. So, and I would think that for a first line center, just because I think it's brave of anyone to do it, let's be honest, but I think it actually would be it should be tougher for goaltenders, and yet they continue to lead the way. So not a very good answer by me, but I know full well, talking to goalie coaches and management people around the league, how some of these things get held against guys. And so as much as we may say, it's easier for goalies because of the nature of the position, like, don't kid yourself. Like, they're being judged when they admit some of these things, and not always for the positive when it comes for times like contracts and stuff. So, I think a center or a defenseman, in some ways it should be easier for them because the position isn't tied so, intimately to mental strength. But that said, it's not easy for anyone, right? This is
like
hard.
To think that they understand what a forward or a defenseman are going through, and then they just leave the goaltending to the goalie coach.
That's a good counter.
Yeah. And I think, Kevin, I think you're right 100%, because we all know, why is there so much pressure on a goalie? Well, because there's only two spots. Like, you're either playing or you're not. And everyone wants to be playing. And so you don't have that luxury of being dropped from the first line to the second line, third line, fourth line. Like, you don't have that luxury as a goalie. It's either, again, you're in or you're not. And every goalie that's made it to a pro rank or the NHL has a lot of pride, because to make it that far means they've had a lot of success and they've played a lot of games, and they've been, fairly consistent enough to not only improve every day, but make it to that top 1 percentile of goalies in the world that make it to that level. So once you get there, you've worked so hard. The last thing you want to do is compromise that in any way, shape, or form. And you don't have any flexibility because, again, there's only one of two spots that can be filled. So I think that's why it's tougher for goalies to come out, but also why it shows how incredibly mentally strong they actually are, because they are still coming out with it, even though they know it's going to have an impact. And again, the conversations, normalizing the conversations, letting everyone know that it's okay to not be okay. That's why it's so important, because goalies have to be able to vent. They have to be able to say, like, I need a break, or I'm not doing well right now. I don't care if it's going to cost me a couple of games, because I need to be able to see the longer picture and the bigger picture here. I've got a family. I've got kids. I've got other people that depend on me. So I have to be present with my family. But all these other things that come into play beyond just the competitive nature of goaltending, which I think, Robin Lehner's been so outspoken about, how what he went through affected his family and affected his relationship with his kids, and how that became front and center on his journey to health. And I think that's so important for younger goalies to understand as well, is that it's not all about what you do on the ice. It's also what you bring to your family, how you are as a human being, how you are as a role model. And so that holistic approach is something that I really gravitated towards, almost 10 years ago now, when I met Mike Valley for the first time. He was so good at understanding, and a lot of other goalie coaches as well, obviously, but, Mike was the one that I gravitated to, and we became really close and started writing the books and stuff. But he truly understood when he was working with, Marty Turco and Kari Lehtinen, that they needed that human element in the coaching as well. They needed someone that was more than just an X's and O's guy. They needed someone that was a really close friend. And, 10, 12
it's sort of the root of the
ago,
whole goalie coach thing was just a sounding board. That was
sounding
the
board.
base.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I'll just finish by saying, what do we look at now when we look at some of the best NHL goalie coaches? A guy like Mitch Korn, for example. Yes, the X's and O's are there, and the strategy and the technique stuff is there, but they're also amazing friends and amazing sounding boards, like you said, Derek, to these goalies. I think that plays such a huge role in their ability to have that emotional stability, and that ability to, kind of push past the fears or push past the anxiety of not performing well, and just keep them on the right path towards getting 1% better every day.
I'm curious about your research and assessment of goaltenders versus players or society. The numbers have been fairly consistent over the last number of years that 1 in 5 suffer from a form of mental illness. Do you think that 1 in 5 is higher among goaltenders?
I think it's 5 in 5, to be honest with you. And I came upon this kind of research and this idea through an organization called We're All a Little Crazy, which is the organization that Robin Lehner is a part of and advocates for. And the guy who runs that organization, his name's Eric Cussin, and he was in pro sports for probably 15 or 20 years. And through his experiences and all the amazing advocacy work that he's done, what he has really taught me as an individual, as I continue to try and mentor goalies and bring this advocacy to the goaltending community, is that, look, let's stop looking at mental illness or mental health as the extreme cases of anxiety or the extreme situations that a guy like maybe Robin Lehner has gone through. Let's talk about it as if we're all going through something, because that's the reality. The reality is, whether we admit it or not, or whether we truly understand or not, everyone is going through something that is going to cause them to not be at their best. And this is a battle that we all face every single day. And every single goalie in the NHL is going to be dealing with something, whether it manifests itself in their actual performances on the ice, or it manifests itself with, anger towards teammates, or not gelling in the locker room, or not being able to really dial it in and be consistent, whatever it may be. Everyone's going through something. And I think that's the important role, whether or not it's scientifically proven or the stats are out there that maybe it's 3 in 5 people, or maybe it's 2 in 5 people that are dealing with a legitimate mental health issue. For me, what I'm starting to truly understand and what I've really noticed is that we could all use a little bit of support with our mindsets, with our mental health, and that it's not about what illness this person or that person has. It's that mental health is on a spectrum. And there are some times where you don't feel great when you wake up in the morning and you're not having a great day. And there's other times when you're on top of the world and everything just seems like you're in heaven. And everything's clicking and everything's going well. But wherever you fall on that spectrum, there are still ways that you can be 1% better, or that you could feel 1% better. Or like I kind of go back to at the top of the segment when you first brought me on, is how do we just become more understanding of what other people are going through? Because the more that we understand that mental health is on a spectrum, and that we're all probably somewhere in there mixed around, floating from one side of the spectrum to another, day by day or week by week or month by month. It's that capacity to understand a human being and be able to like go up to someone with confidence when you know they're struggling. And instead of, again, being afraid of pushing the wrong buttons or saying the wrong things, like having that confidence and having that empathy to go up to a goalie or a teammate and say, hey man, like, I know things didn't go great on the ice tonight. Like, do you want to talk about it? Or what can I do to just help you? Or like, hey man, here's a lift the mask helmet sticker. Like, just wanted to give you one of these just to let you know, like, I'm here for you, man. And like, it's such a simple thing, but it's so hard for people to do because they just don't necessarily have the confidence because they're not used to doing it on a regular basis. And I think that is where like the research is really kind of trending towards, is like just having that ability to normalize the conversation by just being yourself. Like, you don't have to have any special skill sets. You don't need to have a credential or a license to be able to help someone with their mental health, right? Like, it's just that empathy. And I think the empathy-based learning, which is really fun to research, because you can even look at like how VR, for example, is being used to teach empathy-based skills in students and teachers. Like, that is the key for me, is like the social emotional learning and the empathy-based learning is really valuable. And it's something that every coach can benefit from, every human can benefit from, and that helps normalize the conversation. And I think that is kind of what my research, like what I've been digging up. And so I go back to like that whole thought of, yeah, it's not 1 in 5, it's truly 5 in 5, because we all fall somewhere on that spectrum.
So a young goaltender listening to this should do what if they're experiencing some of these symptoms?
Talk to someone. And
how do you start that conversation?
How you start that conversation. So, it could be as simple as sending a text message to a buddy or a coach, but also like if you're looking for real specific targeted actions to take, is like go online and go to, starting, we're right in the middle of launching our new Lift the Mask website. So you can go to the goalieguild.com, /lift the mask. And over the weekend, it'll transfer over to just liftthemask.com. And if you're a goalie and you just don't know what steps to take or where to even start, or you're not even sure exactly what you're dealing with, the resources are there on that website to either connect you with a mentor or one of our ambassadors, a guy like Ben Meisner, who's just always willing to talk to anyone, no matter what they're dealing with. So the ambassadors is a great place to start, because that's a person who is currently playing at an extremely high level that has dealt with something in the past. So these ambassadors are, have lived through it or are living through it, and are great resources to help a goalie overcome those things. Or if you feel like you need professional help, like an actual sports psychologist, it's literally one click on our new website, and you get basically thrown into this portal where you can type in your zip code or your address and find like a radius within 5 to 25 miles of all the different types of sports psychologists and mental health providers and mental skills coaches in your area. And that portal is really valuable because now you have the options in front of you, and it's really just a matter of like, let's help you find the right type of care. If you think you have like a legitimate issue with OCD or anxiety or depression, here's the right resource. If it's something different, maybe it is, like you guys said, it's more on the mental skills and mental performance side of thing, like you just want to improve your confidence because you're feeling down and you're not too sure how to get back on track, like Lift the Mask is all about creating a platform where we can provide you with the right type of support so that, one, you're not wasting time, and two, you're getting the help as quickly as possible. And I mean, there's so many amazing resources out there online, as you guys know. You've had conversations with Corey Hirsch and all the work that he's doing. There's a wide spectrum out there, and there's a lot of great resources. And that's what's great about this movement, is that everyone's kind of getting behind it. Everyone wants to help everyone. And that's just creating this awesome plethora of resources out there that you can tap into. But goalie specific, it's great to know that, Lift the Mask is there for anyone that needs it. And, I'm always around to talk to guys. And I think, again, just making yourself available and letting people know that you're there for them is half the battle.
Awesome. Justin, congratulations on your endeavor, and thank you for your time.
Yeah, no, thank you guys so much. It's truly an honor to be on the InGoal podcast. Like, I loved a bunch of the episodes in the past, obviously, but shout out to Kevin and you guys for doing the interview with Tomas Magnusson, because he's like the Mitch Korn of Sweden, right? And so I thought that was a fascinating interview and one I really enjoyed listening to.
Well, Justin, on behalf of the entire goaltending community, thank you for everything you do, not just Lift the Mask, but beyond. It's sincerely appreciated, and not just for joining us today, but for everything. Thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you guys. It's been awesome, and keep up the great work with everything at InGoal. Like, same thing. You guys do a tremendous job, and it's crazy to think we both kind of started back in whatever it was, 2008, 2009, and the journey that you guys have taken is amazing. And yeah, keep up all the great work over there. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Justin.
There's a lot in that interview, Woody, and maybe more than anything, we walk that fine line between stigmatizing goaltenders as different, as unique, as odd, strange, whatever adjective you want to use, and just players who play a high stress position, who are going to be under maybe a little more stress than a regular skater.
And it's funny, you talked about how it can manifest itself when things aren't right outside of the rink and you bring it to the rink. And I think we can all relate to that. And it doesn't, not even if it doesn't necessarily have to be completely from a mental health, in terms of being diagnosed with a disorder or, something as official or as deep as that, just not being in the right mindset at a game or having other things that are going on in your life in a game, and the things he said that can lead to, maybe for some of us beer leaguers, it might lead to, I don't know, shooting a puck at a guy after he whacks your glove.
Done that.
Yeah, did it this week and was not too proud of it. But it was funny looking back at it, like right after Darren, I was not there mentally. I did not want to be there at that game. I'd played 5 games in the previous 4 days and had a late 10-15 start. And I just wasn't there mentally. And I took it out on sort of the people around me at the game. And looking back on it, just that lack of awareness mentally, that lack of sort of ability to recognize that, you can't play hockey, you can't play goal, especially when you go into it with that type of mindset, and how it manifests itself, in this case, in a way that was actually, pretty embarrassing when I look back on how I reacted. It is a position that's all about mental, whether it's at that tiny little level like that, where you just act like a bit of a child, or obviously for guys who go through much deeper, tougher things and tougher struggles, how it can affect you on the ice, and recognizing the importance of sort of, talking to people and, being upfront about those things, and how maybe even just clearing your chest about how your day and your life is going heading into that game might help you actually change the way you perform within it.
Hey, you know what? Cut yourself some slack, because every story that you've got, I'm not a big fan of one-uppers, but I can one-up you on almost every goofy, childish, immature, dumb act over the course of the years. And
that's good to know I'm not the only snaptastic member of the InGoal Beer League squad.
I'm not going to go into the whole story, but I started a brawl in a shootout one time. And it was a company hockey tournament. So there you go with that one. But and we'll tell the story at some. We'll compare Snaptastics maybe when we don't have a feature interview. But there's always the one or two guys in your league where they're the nicest guys, and then they step on the ice and they just become a different person.
Game 7.
Yeah, I wonder if there's something there with mental health with those people, because it's just bizarre that personalities can change so much when you put on skates and a helmet and give them the hockey stick.
Well, maybe as simple as being a release, but manifests itself in the wrong way. The release is to go over the edge and to find intensity levels that, just are frankly inappropriate for beer league hockey. Yeah, no question. It's
I probably fall under that category for much of my life, and I like to think I'm matured a little bit now, but probably fall under that category. And I wonder, I mean, I've had my documented encounters with mental health, and it just I wonder how many of those people there are out there that just, whether it is that release or whether it is something else.
Well, and we've seen it, a lot of talk on social media today with Bell Let's Talk Day. Before and after, I noticed it, and sort of following along before and after our conversation with Justin about, some people reacting negatively on social media, bashing people, responding to posts, sort of trolling, and how I can't remember who it was, and I apologize for not having done this research, but basically the person went and sort of tracked down some of these people who were the most negative in their responses and found that an overwhelming percentage of them were dealing with mental health issues, and that sort of mechanism to sort of troll and bash other people online anonymously was sort of part of this whole picture. So I think it affects, like what Justin said, it's not 1 in 5, it's probably 5 in 5, just at varying levels. And when we think about it, I think it probably affects all of us. And so anything we can do to open the conversation up, whether it's, serious diagnosed problems that require help in terms of medication, or just even needing to talk more. I've spent time with a psychologist over the years and had it do incredible things for me and where I was at, especially coming out of university, and some, what is the line from Jerry Maguire? Break down, break through. It's ultimately what led me to journalism, from a statistics and computer science double major to a journalist. So these types of things at every different level, at every different degree, the fact that the conversations are now normalized and it's okay to talk about the fact we've had these conversations, these experiences, and sought help is a positive.
And how about just let's make life easier for ourselves? There's nothing wrong with that, and making yourself better, and just making sure that you've got the best possible positioning when you wake up every day to have a better day. There's all kinds of extremes as with this, as so many other things in life, but it doesn't have to be the most dire situation, and it doesn't have to be the most benign circumstance, but just do what you can to make sure that you have a better day. And a better situation is this week's gear segment. And I tell you what, if you want to take care of your head, and we've talked a lot about masks over the course of this podcast, and making sure that your mask fits right, and your cage is in the right area, and you wear a dangler, even though some of us on this podcast don't. But making sure that you're doing the smartest thing and the safest thing to protect yourself. We've never talked about jocks, have we?
No, we haven't. I wasn't sure where you were going there. I don't know why. It's funny because I've written stories about this right up to the NHL level, and the amount of guys that arrived in the NHL wearing a single cup and quickly realized within one practice that, oh no, that's not going to cut it here. I need 2 and sometimes 3. So like a traditional player support with the cup tight to the body, and then a double cup on top of it. We haven't had this conversation. And the perfect place to go and have that conversation is with Cam and the crew at the hockey shop. And sure enough, goalie jocks, not just the different models and the different options that are available, different price points, different features, but how to properly fit it. Just like everything else, how it integrates with your pants, how it integrates with your chest protector. I should have known that Cam would have that all mapped out, that he would have these answers. That's why I go to the hockey shop. That's why you should go to thehockeyshop.com or contact them directly with your questions. This isn't just a bunch of kids pulled off the street out of high school selling goalie gear in their spare time for minimum wage. These are guys that play the position, know the position, love the position, have a real passion for the position, and can help you find equipment that will allow you to play it better. And in the case of jocks, a lot safer. So make sure you check out the Hockey Shop, source for sports in Surrey, or check them out online at thehockeyshop.com, and you'll get answers like the ones we got from Cam this week when it comes to protection for that important area south of the belt. Welcome back to the Hockey Shop, source for sports here in beautiful Surrey, British Columbia. We're back down in the basement with Cam Matwiv, talking a little goaltending gear. The basement, as I like to call it, goalie heaven, looking around, surrounded by equipment. It is not a bad place to be this afternoon. We have, however, sequestered ourselves into the dark corner of the Hockey Shop goalie department, where this corner is reserved for protection, important protection. Cans, goalie cups, goalie jocks. What's the proper terminology these days?
I usually say just goalie jock, but
okay, goalie jock it is. It's important, whatever it is. Are there differences? Do you size these things in terms of waist, in terms of preferences? Do you get these people to try these on with their pants? Do different models integrate with I have so many questions about goalie jocks. So if I come in off the street and say, because actually, to be honest with you, I am in right now personally, I'm going to get personal here. I'm wearing the original, like OG style Warrior double cup. Been an excellent protection piece. It's sort of got that second layer that sits over top. I've seen Ryan Miller wear it at the NHL level, seen other guys wear it at the NHL level. It's been excellent for me. The strapping is finally, one of the straps is torn almost all the way through. So I am actually going to be that guy soon that comes in and says, Cam, I need a new goalie jock. What are my options? What do you go through that process with somebody? Because how it fits with your pants, how it incorporates, like these things actually matter. We make jokes, but they matter. How do you do it?
That's correct. You know what? This is a bit of a personal fit situation, though. So it's finding what's most comfortable for you. Usually my first questions is like, well, what are you looking for? A single cup or a double cup?
Come on. Other than little kids, is anybody actually answering single cup these days?
I mean, it does come up every now and then, but I do, even myself, I triple cup actually. So
and I mean, we've done this story. I've done it at NHL.com. I've done it at InGoal Magazine over the years. Stories from guys that, like a lot of guys in the NHL are triple cup. And so what that means is you wear a traditional sort of jock, like a player jock, sort of tight to the body with an undergarment, and then a goalie double cup on top of it. So technically 3 layers. That is exceptionally common in the National Hockey League. I have some horror stories from guys who decided to go into their first NHL practice wearing a single and quickly realized how much they needed a double or a triple. We have even talked about the nutshells. We have those and have had testers really like those. Those are actually bulletproof cups. We can talk about that later. But so say, who's like single cup? Who's wearing it? At what age are you not wearing a single cup anymore?
I mean, technically speaking, at any age, like you could be choosing not to.
At what age are sane people no longer using a single cup?
I think age is the wrong way to put it, because at the bottom line, if you're comfortable in a single cup and you perceive it as enough, like, hey, power to you at that point. But that said, usually once you start to, well, we call it our intermediate category, that's when you start to see more options for jocks, especially in terms of some are double cup, some aren't. Usually that's at, 12 to 14-ish range. That's when you start to maybe care about,
Well, and you can kids. To me, it's more like it's about how hard kids can shoot too, right? And you got kids are firing absolute. They got these composite rocket launchers these days, and kids are firing bombs by 13. So
yes,
I'm gonna want a second layer. So what are our best options? Okay, I'm gonna ignore single cups for now.
Okay,
let's go double cups. What are our best options? What are the leading sellers? What are the key features?
So our top selling jock, actually, both of them, you can't really call them double cups though. Even the one that you have, you can't really call a double cup.
Why not? I call it a double cup.
I would call it an added layer of protection, because it's not actually a plastic cup per se.
You say tomato, I say tomato.
But that said, arguments aside, we will be talking about it's the Warrior Ritual X2 Pro, which is newer last year. and as well as the Bauer Supreme. The Bauer Supreme in particular isn't a double cup, but it does have an extra hard layer over top that has Poron in it. So you are getting, we'll call it that double cup protection.
Okay, so I call mine a double cup, so we can call that Bauer Supreme a double cup as well. It may not technically be 2 actual cups in there, but you have that secondary layer. And in that case of the Bauer, it's a hard plastic layer, but also Poron, which is, of course, their shock absorbing foam. And we've seen the value of Poron. We've seen the value of CCM in their D3O. We've seen the lab testing. There's a reason it's in my iPhone case, for example. I drop it, it absorbs impact. That seems like a good thing for a cup.
That's correct. Exactly. So that kind of, again, translates right into playing hockey and stopping a puck. So that said, you do have more options than that. So now when we're talking about our actual 3 true double cup jocks with the Brian's Optic, the Vaughn SLR Pro Carbon, and then also the CCM Pro. Those are all 2 physical actual cups on the jocks itself. Lots of protection, but do tend to get a little bit bulkier. So as you said, with trying to integrate them with your pants and whatnot, sometimes it is worth it to quickly slide them on in store, even if it's over a pair of jeans, and throw on a set of pants just to kind of make sure you have that right feel there.
I kind of hope it's over a pair of jeans, to be honest with you. This is like trying on swimsuits. There are rules.
There are rules, and we like to enforce them. Yes.
So nobody's getting down, nobody's stripping down to try them on, but it is recommended to do that. So again, because it matters, right? How it integrates with the pair of pants. If there's coverage that's doubled up by the pants that creates bulk and creates a lack of mobility, that's not a good thing. So you actually will have guys try on their pants with the cup they want to buy.
Also, if you tuck or untuck, actually, that's a big note that's it's glossed over pretty quickly, because some of these jocks do come up higher and give you extra gut protection. But if you're also
up into the waistband, if you're tucking in your chest protector, that's a problem.
That can get in kind of the way. So that's all questions that I usually answer or riddle back to the customers, or trying to figure out what jock they're looking for. And these are all factors that do end up coming into play.
This is why we come to the Hockey Shop Source for Sports and check Cam out at thehockeyshop.com. Because of those extra layers of knowledge, it doesn't just send you a cup. He needs to know how it's going to fit and how you wear the rest of your gear. Adjustable waistbands. I know for sure the Warrior has it. Looks to me like the Bryans has some adjustability there. That's probably a factor as well.
Yeah, for the most part, every company's got kind of that. We'll find your fit. It just might take some adjusting and finding exactly what you're looking for. But with all of them having an adjustment, you're going to be able to find your fit for sure.
Okay, and price points. Bit of a range there. I mean, like I've seen, it can go, your average seems to be around $100 and get it as high as $140 for the Vaughn SLR Pro Carbon.
That's correct. Yeah, you're basically right in the range. I mean, we do have some things that are cheaper, but like, again, we're getting into that territory. It's like,
this is not a place you want to skimp on protection.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's uses for those cheaper ones, especially, but I would probably say, around that $100 range.
And of course, we're coming at this from a male perspective. On female goaltender side, do you have Jills as well?
We sure do. No, we haven't forgotten about you, ladies. We do have Jills. We carry a couple. I believe we've
goalie
got
specific.
Yes, exactly. We've got one option in the Bauer, and I think another option in CCM, and one from Vaughn that I know we're out of, but we are bringing some more back in.
Perfect. Folks, this is why you come to the Hockey Shop. This is why you check out thehockeyshop.com. Nobody knows more about protecting those important sensitive areas and how to make sure it integrates with your pants and your chest protector and all those factors that make goaltenders than Cam and his staff down here at thehockeyshop.com. Cam, they can check you out online at thehockeyshop.com. Check out the latest selection and pricing on all the jocks, the goalie jocks online. But if they got questions and they want to talk to you in person, where do they call?
604-589-8299.
Cam, thanks a lot for having us down, going over the jocks. Thank you doubly so for not trying any on in person. It's sincerely appreciated. But it's nice to know that you do have other people try it on to get that right fit. We'll make sure we send some people down here to put on a little goalie jock swimsuit show.
Thanks.
I have a question for you, Woody. Did you try on your cup before you wore it or purchased it?
I did not. And it's interesting, though. Obviously, we test a lot of equipment here at InGoal. And I mean, I've got a garage full of it, right? So there's constantly different, sets of equipment coming in and out. And I have for sure noticed, I kind of went the other way, right? Like I had that Warrior jock that I mentioned. Cam said it's not technically a double cup, and I guess that's true, but it's got that pretty big shield in front of the cup piece. It's pretty protective. Been very comfortable with it. Never had any cringeworthy moments in it. But I started with that, and I have definitely noticed as we go through different pant testing models, there are some that integrate with it beautifully, and there are others where there's interference that either cause it to shift or don't allow the pants to sit right based on the cup itself. So I went backwards. I started with the cup, and now I've kind of picked a set of pants that I like that fit around it. As a matter of fact, for me, the CCM Premier pants with the inner belt, I find that even the belt itself lines up perfectly along that. There's sort of a front area of the cup, so you can kind of pull it tight and make sure everything stays in place. So it is important to consider how that cup is going to fit, how it's going to integrate with your pants, and how that fit can affect not only your movement, but whether when you move, everything stays in the right place that's going to keep it protected.
The jock that I currently wear is Monster Hockey. I bought it online. It's great cup, but I bought it online and I knew the specs of it, but I'd never tried it on. And now, like, listening to you and Cam and really putting some thought into it, I mean, that's ludicrous not to try something on. Especially, I guess I could have sent it back and exchanged it if it didn't work. But this is the one piece that you really should try on and make sure it fits with your gear. And I bet you it's 8%, 10% of people that would do it, and I'm being conservative with that number.
That's why you go to the hockey shop, because they're going to tell you to try it on. And we got the rules. So like the swimwear, you're going to make sure you got the liners in there. Don't be dropping trout and heading into the can and trying it on bare. But it made me laugh. It makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. It's such an important piece of protection. Now here's the $1 million question. And I got to say, I have written on this before, like I said, at the NHL, NHL.com, did an unmasked column on it. And I'm just kicking myself. This was way back in 2017, feels like way back now. And I didn't keep the recordings of the interviews I did with the guys that had cringeworthy moments, like Devin Dubé.
Are you going all like immature little boy on me here?
Oh, but
and you're going to giggle.
Like, hey, listen, when it doesn't work, man, like guys lying in the crease. I think Darcy Kemper in junior, when he took one, like he said he was on the couch for an entire week, like literally couldn't move for a week, just basically ice packing it for a whole week. Like, there's a reason you want this stuff to fit, guys, because when it doesn't work, it hurts. Now, here's the $1 million question, however. Forget the NHL stuff. And if you listen to this and can answer this, folks, feel free to reach out to us and share your stories. We could have a whole little subset of the questions with Cam here. Have you ever gotten to the rink and it's not in the bag? And And what did you do?
Go to the pro shop.
What if the pro shop wasn't open? Have you ever dared play without one?
No. Have you?
Once.
You're stupid.
Oh, crazy dumb. And of course, the thing is, like, what's your whole goal as a goaltender is to center yourself on the shot, right? Like you're trying to get sort of middle net, have it hit you in the middle. I borrowed somebody else's, like the shorts that the players wear with the cup built in. So it doesn't stay in the right. I had something, but it doesn't stay in the right spot, right? It's not tight. Yeah. And then we just stuffed 2 sets of player socks, like, the old knit player socks that they were. Stuffed 2 of those down the front. But sure enough, I took one right there during the game. And let's just say it wasn't the same level of protection as the actual goalie cup would offer. What are you going to do? Hey, listen, it's like the backup stick. Like, you got to have something. And maybe I should. I was just showing you our bulletproof cup. Maybe I shouldn't have this in my office. Maybe I should just keep this in my bag as a spare, right?
Yeah. And I thought you not wearing a dangler was the worst thing that you do at the rink.
Hey, listen.
Little did I know that was dangling, going unprotected.
Nobody's ever accused me of being all that bright there.
You ever break one? You ever have a cup break?
No, I have not. I have not.
I have. It's like, it's scary when you go, oh my, that could have been, like, if I wasn't really wearing some good gear. Wow. So just, go to a place, get fitted properly for a cup. And if I could give anybody advice, in all seriousness, wear the athletic support underneath to make sure everything's tight, and then wear a double cup. You cannot have too much protection in this area. Make sure it fits for your size, whether you're a peewee hockey player or a midget or a junior or a pro. Make sure it fits your body type. But yeah, wear an athletic support, and then you can't be too protected.
Or you too could end up like Darcy Kemper. I actually just found the story as you were talking, Darren. Quote Darcy Kemper, "I was on crutches for 3 days because I couldn't walk. I couldn't get off the couch. I couldn't even stand up." Yeah, that was in junior. I think it was a deflected puck. So, yeah, there's a reason the guys in the show wear 3. Many guys wear 3, at least 2. Make sure it fits. Make sure it fits.
And that technology and the fit and the performance from the belly part to the cup has really come a long way too. So there's no reason why you should be wearing old technology, and it's just not smart.
No,
so
you
there we go.
Like everybody has a guy in their locker room, especially when you reach a certain vintage where he's a player and he's wearing he's proud that he's got these shoulder pads from 1945 and there's nothing to them. They're just basically felt and they do nothing. Like you must just throw a hoodie on underneath there, buddy. This is not how you should treat your goalie cup purchase. There's new tech out there. We talked about the Bauer with the pour-on. There's sort of impact absorbing foam in there, multiple layers, different brands, different adjustability and fit. It's easy to get one that fits and performs. Make sure you check them out at thehockeyshop.com to get one that fits and performs for you.
Make sure everything's tight on this nuts and bolts episode of InGoal Radio, the podcast. For Kevin Woodley, I'm Darren Millard. On behalf of David Hutchison, thanks for listening. Be safe, be smart, and talk if you want, because there's always somebody there to listen. And if you don't talk, nobody will ever hear you. Have a good week.